Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey. Good boy, Tucker.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Catherine,
Yes.
you ready for workflows?
Yes, always.
This is the start of workflows. So with workflows today, we decided we're going to split it up in two. Catherine and I are going to be going over workflows and the building process of it. And then Austin and Catherine, without me, are going to be going over how to actually implement the workflows. So again, if you do have questions about how to actually, manage and work on the workflows, this section is not going to be it. We are really going to be talking about conceptualizing, whiteboarding out your workflows, those different processes, so you can actually build them and build those templates to set them up for success later on. And then again, Austin and Catherine, after another break, will then go over and tell you, once you have those built out, how do you actually use them? So with that, a few questions come up. What is a workflow? Why should I use workflows? Where do I begin? Like, there's so many questions with that, but building workflow should always start with your whiteboarding process. Catherine, I would say I can't stress that enough. It's so important to sit down and whiteboard out your processes. What does a whiteboard your process mean? What does that mean, Catherine?
So think of this as kind of drafting it out. It's getting all those ideas onto a paper. I actually described this last week to a client as taking it back to when you were in elementary. You didn't just submit a final paper. You had a rough draft version. You made some edits. That's kind of what that whiteboarding process is it's gathering your thoughts so that way you don't have just chaos when you jump in to actually build it.
And to be able to build it and build it well, you have to understand what the terms that Redtail has are. And so what we're going to do for a majority of the section is really break down those terms to sort of show different ways to think about it. So with that, we have steps, tasks, and outcomes. So we'll start with steps. So steps are designed to be high level. It's telling you what part of the process you're at, and it's always one at a time. And so again, the point of a step, I have step 1, step 2, step 3, means I can look at my process and say, oh, I'm at the preparation step for the meeting, or I'm at the execution or the follow-up step. Or, it's just telling you what part of the process you're at. It's not actually telling you what needs to get done. It's just telling you where you are. So tasks, Catherine, you want to explain that for us?
Yeah, so tasks are actually telling you what you're doing. So unlike step, this is where you're really going to break down and say, I have to go and run this report. I need to file the paperwork. I need to call the client, verify the account's opening. So it's really telling you to do something. And this is also where you get to assign out who's responsible for those. So we'll break that down further as well, but think task, think verbs.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a big one. Verbs are always, it's telling you to do something. It's an action item. Now, even with those first two terms, steps and tasks, where we're going to cover outcomes in just a little bit. I point over here. I'm not sure if my hand is going to the same side as the screen as everybody. So I apologize if I keep saying right and my hand's going left for you. But so with that, steps and tasks are really just all you need, tells you where you are and what needs to happen to move forward. Now, outcomes, because steps are one at a time, outcomes control the direction. So if I'm at step 1, do I need to go to step 2 next? Do I need to go to step 3? Do I need to skip all those steps and go to step 17? Like, the outcomes control the direction by going step to step. So on the completion of a step, which means I've done all of the tasks inside that step, where do I need to go next? Also, outcomes allow for note-taking when you complete each step. And so it's, even when you understand those terms, it's like, okay, well, where do I begin at this point? I like to begin with what Catherine told us is, it's the tasks. What do I actually need to do first? What are the action items that need to get done? When you list out all of your tasks, you can then start to separate and move them together to say, oh, these tasks are all part of the same process, and these tasks are part of this step, and you can start to move them around. So again, start with tasks, separate into steps, and then the outcomes can determine where you're going to go. So with that, I want to talk about groceries. All right, you ready
What
for
a
this?
transition there. Everyone's
What
like,
a
what?
transition. we're going to take this out of like, financial talk. We're not going to be doing like a client review, really, things like that. I'm going to talk about the concept of workflows like I'm going to go grocery shopping. And so when I go grocery shopping, we start and we build out a list. All right. So you see on the right hand side there, I got to get drinks, I got to bacon, eggs, I get milk, I get a wine. I got wine on that list. There's tomatoes, lemons. I got a whole list of items. Now, personally, I've really this past year seen as like the grocery store is like the only place I go other than my house. I've really like devised like a plan. Like I know exactly what I can get at grocery outlet, what I get at Safeway, and what I get at Bevmo. And I've decided that every time I go grocery shopping, I hit these three stores. And there's certain things I get at grocery outlet, certain things I get at Bevmo, certain things I get at Safeway. And so those are my steps. So again, think of it like at the grocery store. I have a list of items, but I cannot pick up, if I'm at grocery outlet, I can't pick up something for Safeway if it's at Safeway and not at grocery outlet. So that's the step. The step is the store, the tasks are the items, and the outcomes are going to tell me where I go next. So again, once I decide that, I'm going to split them up. I actually split them up here, and you'll see I have step 1 is for the grocery outlet, step 2 is Bevmo, and step 3 is Safeway. Now, sidestepping, there's actually, I don't go to Bevmo every single time. Most of the time, the goal is to go to grocery outlet and go to Safeway, but sometimes I need to go to Bevmo because grocery outlet doesn't have the right wine. I know that seems crazy. I was actually, last time we did this presentation, I wasn't aware that grocery outlet wasn't everywhere. Grocery outlet is like this grocery store that is like, everything's like really cheap and not consistent. And what I mean like that is like they might have pineapples today, but they're not going to have pineapples for 3 more months. And that's not because it's like out of season, it's because they just didn't get them. So it's like all of their drinks, everything is constantly changing. You can never rely on it. But there are a few things is I know I can get soda there. I know I can get value packed chicken, bacon, eggs, even though the brands are changing, like constantly changing, because I'm pretty sure that grocery outlet is getting things that fell off the back of a truck, and that's how they're deciding what's in their store. But I love it, and it's cheap.
You gotta search for the great deals, right?
Yes, but I go there first. If I can get it from grocery outlet, that's great. If not, I have another backup. I got Safeway to go to. All right, so that's what the plan is here. I want to get everything I can done in step 1 at grocery outlet. We're actually going to use that example, but use it with wine. In my opinion, grocery outlet has the best value for their wine. Again, they're always constantly changing, but they don't always have good wine. But most of the time they do. If they don't have good wine, I don't buy it from grocery outlet. I actually go to Bevmo. So that's the condition here is if grocery outlet doesn't have wine, then I'm going to go to Bevmo before I go to Safeway. Okay, so keep that in mind. But if grocery outlet does have the good wine, I don't need to go to Bevmo. I'm going to actually skip Bevmo and go over to Safeway. I'm skipping step 2 altogether. That's what the outcomes can do. So outcome 1 means I got the wine at grocery outlet. We're going straight to Safeway. Outcome 2 means, hey, I didn't get the wine. I need to go down to Bevmo first, get the wine, and then go on to Safeway. Okay, so again, that's what the outcomes can do. When you go through a workflow, you are not required to go through every single step. You do not have to go step 1, step 2, step 3. Steps don't necessarily always need to be completed because maybe it's not necessary depending on what happens. Okay, so for the instance of, maybe I'm calling a client to confirm a meeting. Well, the outcomes for maybe if the step is telling me prep for the meeting and the task is confirm the meeting, well, when I reach out to confirm the meeting, they either reschedule, they confirm the meeting, or they cancel. Those 3 different things that can happen. And depending on what they tell me when I'm actually finishing the task of preparing for the meeting, it can take me to step 2, can take me to step 3. I can repeat step 1. If they reschedule, I'm going to restart step 1 and start the process over again. If they cancel, I just need to complete. So you'll see there's all these different possibilities of what can take me in a different direction. So again, back to the wine. If grocery outlet doesn't have the wine, I'm going to go to Bevmo. Now, let's actually, and again, that's just taking it out of the meeting itself. We're actually going to dive in and actually build out a prospecting workflow today. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about due dates. Okay, so even though when I go grocery store shop, when I go grocery store shopping, I said that weird, grocery shopping, I get that all done in one day. I don't need to say, hey, I need to get it done one day before, 2 days after. Like it's all done on one day. Most processes cover more than just one day, and that's why we have the ability in your process to create a target date and then when the steps are due. So in this case, the steps are due based off of the target date, and that target date is a pivot point. It can happen at the beginning, the middle, or the end of your workflow process. As an example, for a target date happening at the beginning, maybe it's a prospecting workflow where it's a call cadence. I actually set up a call cadence. This is what we're going to be building today to reach out and call them every few days to get them to schedule a meeting. In that case, I can say that the target date should be day one of the process, and step one is due the same day as the target date. Step two is due 2 days after the target date. Step three is due a week after the target date. Step four is due 2 weeks after the target date. So everything is determined by the target date itself based off of it being day one of the process. The second option is the target date might be the same day as your meeting, which means it can exist in the middle of your process. So I have 3 steps for a meeting. I need to prepare, I need to execute, and I need to follow up. So what that means, if the target date is in the middle of the process, step one is due a week before the target date. Step two is due on the target date, and step three is due 2 days after the target date. If that target date, in this case, is down here where it says, if step one is due 3 days before the target date, and the target date is set to March 13th, then step one is due on March 10th. So again, because step one is 3 days before, when the target date gets set to March 13th, step one is now due on the 10th. What that allows me to do is I can schedule 5 different meetings, have 5 different processes that are exactly built out the same, but all have different dates on them. So I know I need to prep a certain amount of days before, execute the day of, and follow up the day after. Now, again, the target date as the last example might even be at the end of your process. So maybe if maybe it's an event you're building up and saying that the target date is going to be the day of this event. You know, it's going to be what is it? April. We'll say April 22nd. Okay. In that case, I can say that step one is due a month before the target date. Step two is due 2 weeks before. Step three is due a day before. You know, so everything is building up to that day. There's a lot of different possibilities in how you want to build them out. But again, it all comes down to build out your lists of tasks, separate them, take a step back and say, okay, how long or what is the most important date of this process? Is it the day I start? Is it a day in the middle, or is it the day I end? And that's what is going to be based, that is what the due dates for everything else is going to be based off of. Now, Catherine,
Yes.
we've been talking about workflows a lot of talk. We have this example here of this prospecting workflow that we're going to build out. Do you want to sort of explain how the actual workflow is laid out on our PDF here?
Yeah. So what this PDF is actually, it's really what we were talking about with that whole whiteboarding, but putting it into a terminology where we can actually take what's here and just literally plug it in. So we broke it down again by those tasks, but resorted it with those steps. So that first column that we're seeing on that left-hand side, that is actually our steps. So we've got 6 steps here. And then we have our tasks, which actually tell us what we're doing here. Now, one thing I always like to just clarify really fast here with those tasks is that the bare minimum for a task or what you really should have is 1 task per step. So every now and then we might get that question of why is my workflow not working? Make sure it has at least 1 task. You might find that the step name and the task name are the same, but that's okay. So again, we've got 6 steps. We've got what those 6 steps are made of. And then over on the right-hand side, it has, well, what are those possibilities that could come up? Are we going to move forward to step 2? Are they flat out going to tell us they're not interested from step 1, so I don't need to continue on? Or did they tell us they're interested, so I need to hop all the way to the bottom? So again, think of those outcomes as that fork in the road. Where am I going next? So we're going to take what's here and literally go build it out. So you might see us kind of flip-flopping back and forth. But again, Just because it's here doesn't mean you can't expand on it. Don't feel like you have to build it exactly, but we'll go ahead and show you what this really looks like and how you can actually use it.
Awesome. And again, like this workflow is for prospecting. It's setting up a call cadence. The point here is to either get them to tell us that they're interested in a meeting or not interested in a meeting. So, and that's why down at the bottom, we have step 5 is not interested, which the task is saying if they're not interested, it tells us to update their category. Now, the reason we're updating their category is in this case, we would have them with a status of prospect. And if they're not interested, we're going to change that category to lost. So they're a lost prospect. They don't want any more communication. If they actually tell me they are interested in a meeting and I have them set up as a prospect, I can change the category to hot, which means they're interested in a meeting. Like I've defined those terms. So similar to this style guide, if you've defined what your statuses and categories are, this can help your workflow process as well as you're building it out. So even though I want to get to either step 5 or step 6 before I complete the workflow, interaction 1 is I'm going to make a phone call, I'm going to send an email, and it's either interested or not interested. I can go down to, from that first call, go down to interested or not interested. Catherine, could you imagine if they told me they were not interested in a meeting, but then I went to interaction day 2 and 2 days later, I gave them a call again after they told me they were not interested?
Yeah, they're going to be upset.
Yeah, like that's not good.
Yeah, no.
That's not good. So keep in mind the outcomes say, hey, I don't want to keep calling them on steps 2, 3, and 4. I just need to take them to step 5 so I can make sure and update my database with the appropriate information and then close out this workflow. Everything's done at that point. So we're going to build this out. We're going to build part of it out. We already have it fully built out in the system. We're going to show you how to do that. But I'm going to swipe over to the CRM. We're going to go to our name in the top right-hand corner here and then manage your account. Now, a lot of the times when people build workflows, I actually see them come over to the left-hand side first. They click on workflows, and you know what? That's not the wrong thing to do. Oh, hey, I want to do workflows, so I'm going to click on workflows on my screen, and I'm going to hit new workflow up here. When you hit new workflow in the top right, this is saying I want to start a workflow from a template that I've already created. But if you don't have any templates, you won't be able to select a workflow, and it gives you the option of create with no template. So that's what we're fixing here is we need to give the option of templates first before we actually go to this page. So to do that, you go to your name in the top right-hand corner, then manage your account. Once you're on manage your account, you scroll down to the section that says manage templates. And the very last one, we can say workflow templates. Perfect.
Now,
So
Curtis, do you have to be an admin to make a workflow?
great question. No, nobody, you do not need to be an admin to build a workflow. Anybody who has access to your Redtail database can build out a workflow template. Once you click the workflow templates, no matter what level you are, and you're on this page, if this page is blank, that's definitely fine. It just means you don't have any templates in your database. That's normal. If you do have a list, you're going to see, okay, here's all the workflows that we've built out in this database. But if I want to create a brand new one, I come over to new on the right-hand side. Once I choose that, right now, we're just going to focus on the name of the workflow. You can name it however you want. I'm going to just call this RTU online just so we know what it's for. And we're going to call it prospecting. Once you fill it out, so this is just the prospecting workflow. If I can spell things correctly today, there we go. Then to the right of that, you'll see there's a status. Now, this status is not customizable. It's either active, inactive, or under construction. If you're still building it out and you got your hard hat on, I would say keep it as under construction. Once it's built out, we can then change it to active, but we're going to keep it as under construction for now. Below that, you're going to see you have options of owner and category. These are great fields to actually set up for like sorting the workflow itself.
Mhm.
The owner of a workflow can be assigned to a user, a team, one of our roles like advisor, associate advisor, or CSA, or even the creating user. That means if I'm the one who starts this workflow from the template, I will be assigned to this field. That's a great option to have. But the owner is really used for high level, like who's overseeing this process. So if I say that the prospecting workflow should always be overseen by a specific team of users, I can say it's always our client service team. So every time we do the prospecting workflow, the client service team is overseeing that process. I can use that for sorting. It does not mean that they are responsible for every single task that's in the workflow. Just means they are overseeing the process. And then the category itself is how do I want to categorize this workflow? This is actually pulled from your note and activity categories, so you can actually use that. It's also optional. I don't necessarily need to choose one right now, but if you do want to actually categorize your templates, you can definitely do so. Now below that, we have set the target date. Now, Catherine, for the prospecting workflow, is this, I do want to set the target date immediately, correct?
We do for a prospecting, because this one, it's really a, hey, I got the name. I want to reach out to them as soon as physically possible. So this is actually where we're going to want to put 0 days after creation. Now, I do want to clarify though, if you are doing something where the target date's in the middle, i.e. a meeting date, this is where that number might not make sense because obviously we're not always scheduling 5 days out, 10 days out. It could be I'm meeting with them on Friday, another person's getting met with 3 weeks from now, someone else isn't for 2 months. So always be aware that you don't have to fill in this actual section.
And keep in mind, just to reiterate what Catherine just said, is if I know when the target date is going to be based off of when I start it, so what that means is I know that my prospecting workflows are always going to, the target date should be the same day they start. I know what the target date should be.
Mhm.
But if the target date is the same day as a meeting, that meeting technically isn't scheduled yet. It's actually going to be a whole bunch of meetings. Every time I schedule a client review, I don't know when the target date is based off of when I'm creating it, so I can keep it blank. So
Right.
essentially, keeping it blank means target date is to be determined.
Yep.
It's TBD. I don't know when it is yet, so I'm keeping it blank. But I know for this prospecting workflow, I always want it to start the day of. So I'm putting the target date will be set to 0 days after the creation date. And if I went to math class and I understand this correctly, 0 plus today equals today.
You would
Correct.
be correct. Yeah. Now,
Perfect.
with that as well, correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, we also have another option when you fill out that set target date of weekends and federal holidays.
Yes. So you can actually say exclude weekends and federal holidays. What this does not mean, this does not mean that everything is going to be based off of business days. So it doesn't mean if I say 6 business days, that actually means, what is it? 8, I think,
Yep.
if there's a weekend involved. It does not mean that. This means that if the target date or a due date for the step or the task falls on a weekend, it will push it to either the Monday after or the Friday before. This is just going to make sure that nothing is ever due on a weekend, but I can still assign due dates to weekends. Just our system will say it's due on the Friday or the Monday if that activity or if that workflow is assigned to the Saturday or Sunday.
Exactly.
Again, that just helps it. Again, it's not saying that the workflow is now based off of business days. It's still individual days.
Yep.
All right. So once you build that out, and again, really just the name and then 0 days after creation date is all I need. I can hit create workflow and it throws it into my template here. So in this case, I'm going to scroll down and find that template that we just created right here, RTU prospecting. I open it up and I got a whole page of nothing.
Nothing.
Yay.
Yay. But no, this is
Nothing
actually a
is
good thing.
definitely fun. Yes, nothing
This
is
is
good.
this is where you can start to pull that whiteboarding process. So imagine if you don't plan it out, when you get to this page, this is that free for all. You're gonna click around and just have um, a really great time. I'll say that sarcastically, because this is where you'll start to plug in data and go, whoops, I forgot about this. Oops, I forgot someone does a task here. Whoops, forgot a step completely. It happens all the time. So whiteboard it out first.
So what I've started doing is over here to the right, I have this button, new step. I can create as many steps as I want. Let's actually scroll back over to here, and we actually need 6 steps.
Right.
So the first 4 are interactions, and the second 2 are either not interested or interested. And so I'm going to build those out just a little bit. We're not getting, like I said, we already have this whole thing built out fully, and we'll show you that looks out. I just want to show you how to start building it out. So I'm not going to fill everything, just the most important parts. So with this, new step number 1, I want to actually call that interaction number 1. So I can actually come over here, edit the step name, and I can say interaction number 1. I'm going to name it that. Now with that, when you create the step, you get to decide when is the step due based off of the target date. Now we've decided that when we created the workflow, the target date is the same day as the meeting. Okay. Or sorry, same day as the day I add them as a prospect.
Yeah.
So in this case, I want to make sure that maybe the day I add them as a contact, I also reach out and do that first interaction. So step one is going to be due on the target date. Perfect. That means the day of the creation, I already have tasks due. I add that. I now come down to step two, edit that, and I'm going to put interaction number 2 here. Number 2. And now this, what do we have in our template here? This is going to be 3 days after. So I actually put that on my template. So when I go to step due, it's going to put after the target date, and I can say 3 days after the target date. Easy enough. I'm going to continue doing that all for step 3, or sorry, interaction 3 and interaction 4. And then for down here, step 5 and 6, where I have not interested and interested in meeting, it's okay to actually just not set a due date. It just means once I get to that step, it won't have a due date, but I can still find those tasks. They'll be at the top because there's no due date. I'll see those first, actually. So in this case, as I continue to build them, you do not need to choose a due date. If you don't choose a due date, again, it just means that there won't be automatic due dates for your steps.
Exactly.
Which is definitely fine.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, Curtis, but I do want to point out as well, because sometimes we'll get the question of, well, what happens if I don't reach out on 3 days? I reached out 4 days after the target date. Is my workflow broken? Is it completely closed down on me? And the answer is it just stays open. So even if you complete it early or complete it late, once you actually complete it, and we'll go over that with the implementation section, it'll reflect once you've actually done it. So these are more of those guidelines to help us stay on track as much as possible.
Awesome. Awesome. So once you start building those out, and again, just the name of the step and then when it's due, then we can move down to the next thing is what are the tasks? So in this case, I have 2 tasks in step 1 and 1 task in step 2. So coming back over here, I'm going to hit new task twice under step 1, new task once under step 2, and I can do the same thing for all the other ones. So I can build those out however many action items you have. Again, this is the grocery list. When I'm at, if interaction number 1 is grocery outlet, what are the items I'm going to be getting at grocery outlet? So that's what I'm doing here. I build those out. Now, when you do that, I can edit the individual task name. If I don't want to say new task 1, I actually want it to say, and what do we have here? We got make prospecting phone call and prospecting email. Okay, so make phone call. Oh my goodness. Does that happen to you where you're typing on your computer and like it's not actually here?
Yep. I was like, oop, are we glitching? Hopefully not. But yeah.
Here's the thing. I have like 13 different windows open on another screen and I was typing on one of them and I don't know where it was. So that'll be a surprise later.
So again, we're just filling in those task names. So again, always think of this as a verb. It's telling us to do something. So pick up the phone and call someone, physically send the email, run that specific report. Now this is sign 2. This is also the same 4 options we actually saw from owner, but this is where you actually get to assign responsibility. So again, that tends to be another pain point we always get with workflows don't work for me. They never show up. Well, if we don't assign them, then of course they're not going to show up for us. So this is really making sure that, our coworker knows what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Now, on top of that, like there's a lot of different options. So if I choose user, it means that making the prospecting phone call is always going to be assigned, and we're going to pick on Catherine here. I can say Catherine. That means every time we start this prospecting workflow, Catherine is the only person responsible for this task. If that's how it is, there's one person always responsible. That's a great option to use.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is saying, hey, it can be anybody on the client service team. So I think we have like 6 people on the client service team. It means one of them is going to be assigned to this. It's not going to be random. It means they're all assigned to it until one of them does it. So again, if me and Catherine are both on the client service team, if I complete the task, she won't see that task anymore. The next option is role. This is saying, well, okay, the prospecting phone call should be done by the assistant of the advisor. And maybe we have multiple advisors. In that case, I can say that we're going to assign this task to the role of the CSA, or even to maybe the associate advisor or the advisor. What that means is it looks at the contact record, and whoever the contact record has as the CSA, depending on maybe their advisor, that's who gets assigned to the task. The fourth option, which I love this option, means, hey, whoever started the workflow is assigned to this task. So if you're in an office where it says, well, we don't assign tasks based off of who the clients belong to. It's really about who took the phone call. So if I took the phone call and I created the prospecting work, if I started this workflow, I'm going to be assigned to the task. I'm going to make the first prospecting call. And actually, let's use that one. I'm going to actually assign it to creating user. So if I'm the person who starts the workflow, I'm responsible for this individual task. Now,
I do
again,
want
even
to say
good.
something here really quick here, because again, it could cause confusion. That role of advisor. So let's edit that task for the second one, Curtis, and let's make that the role of advisor or the CSA for this one. So again, this one's that send email to our prospect here. We'll correct that spelling here. Again, we don't spell great, we don't read correctly, but we can see our very well. So with this one, assigned to with role, this is not saying the servicing or writing advisor that's on the main contact page. There is specifically a section under permissions and roles that say advisor, associate advisor, and CSA. So I know sometimes we'll be like, well, we filled it in, but it's not giving me an assignment. It's because this field in particular might be missing.
Now, also keep in mind, like we talked about for cleaning up chaos earlier, like you can actually make bulk changes
Mhm.
to the roles. Like I can
Yep.
do a bulk change of assign the roles of these contacts to specific users if I need to.
You
And
got
so
it.
that's definitely an option. We have a lot of information on our help desk on how to actually manage those roles as well. So in this case, again, you can assign each individual task to different people. This is like, hey, Catherine, if we go to the grocery store together, maybe it's Sunday, it's
We're not going to
1:30
Costco.
at Costco.
No.
Sunday, 1:30 at Costco, we're walking in.
No.
All right. Does that sound like the worst time to ever go to any place
You
ever?
bet. We're
Yes.
definitely dividing and conquering that.
That's what's great about tasks. And it's a divide and conquer situation. It means, hey, Catherine, you take this half of the list. I'm going to take this half of the list. We're at the same store. We're on the same step. And you go get the milk, bread, eggs. I'm going to get the bacon, the beer. I'm going to get the other items. Divide and conquer. What that means is I don't have to wait for Catherine to pick up the eggs before I pick up the milk.
Got it.
It's like it doesn't matter. I am not reliant on her completing a task before I can do mine. That's what's great about the workflows is you can have multiple tasks under one step and saying that as soon as I get my part done, I'm just going to wait until we move to the next step together. Once we get all the grocery items, maybe Catherine got all of hers first and she's just sort of hanging out at the front, holding a place in line for Curtis to grab the rest of his so they can both go to the next store together. Like that's what it is. We're all on giant grocery store runs together, just moving through that process. Right?
Supermarket sweep scenario. That's what I'm picturing.
I love the remake. Have you
So
watched
do I actually. But so
it?
definitely kind of to reiterate that whole portion is that you can have multiple of those different roles or different users or different teams. You aren't stuck with the same person for that step. So just really to clarify that.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to fill this out and we're going to talk a little bit about the outcomes. So with that, we said there are two options. Either they go to not interested, the step, or they go to interested in meeting the step. So I'm going to actually create those two in here. Interested in meeting. When those are both created, so when you have the steps created, we're going to actually just use step one up here. So interaction number one. So when we complete the phone call or send the email, we've decided that either we want to go to step two, which is to do the same things again, reach out again to try and schedule a meeting, or they told us that they were interested or were not interested. And depending on that answer, we're either going to go to step 5 or step 6. So to build an outcome, you go to the step level, you choose the action icon and hit add outcome. With this, it's going to pull up and you're going to write the name of the outcome. And then when that name is selected, where do you want to go next? So in this case, we can say, I'm just going to say email and phone call made. If both are done, no answer, maybe we just left a message, we just want to go to the next one, then the next step will be interaction number 2. So email phone calls made, go to interaction number 2, easy enough. The next option We go back to the step level, hit add outcome on the action button, and I can say that they are interested in meeting. If they're interested in the meeting, then I'm going to take them to the step that's called interested in meeting. All right, so this is the answer they gave me, and if they give me that answer, this is where I'm going. Perfect. Then the last one is not interested in meeting. So if I hit add outcome a third time and I put not interested in meeting, then I just want to go to not interested. Now, in this case, I could just say, well, complete the workflow. Hey, they're not interested to complete the workflow, but there's a little bit of cleanup items I need to make sure and change their category. So that's why I want to go to that step. Once you create those outcomes, you can actually see them over here to the right where it says outcomes, and it's built out just like over here. We have those outcomes are built out. Just like on the whiteboard, we know exactly where they can take us. And again, you would want to create those outcomes on every step of where you can go next. So again, when you complete the tasks, it's where do I need to go next? Just like we finished up at grocery outlet and we said, hey, they had great wine here at grocery outlet. We don't need to go to Bevmo. We're going to choose outcome number 2, which takes us straight to Safeway. We don't need to go to Bevmo. Perfect.
Right.
Love it. Bevmo has great deals. Their 5-cent wine sale is fantastic. A lot of great options there, but still we got a better deal at grocery outlet.
There
If
you
you've
go.
learned anything from today, it's go to grocery outlet to check out their wine. It's really fantastic. I'm not even kidding. All right. Now, below that, down at the bottom, what's really important is when you actually end, if I have a task here for not interested, I still need to make an outcome to when this step is complete to end the workflow. So with that, I'm actually going to sidestep here, and we're actually going to go to our other templates. I want to show you what this whole workflow looks built out in the system. So when I go back to the workflow templates, we're going to scroll down here to the bottom. We have our prospecting workflow. This is exactly what we were just building. So you'll see interaction number 1, we got to make these 2 tasks. They're assigned to these people over here, and we have the interactions. Now, this one only has 2 outcomes. Either says they're not interested or the call was made. Let's add a third outcome because maybe they told us during that first call that they were interested. So in that case, we're going to add the outcome one more time. And I can put interested in meeting. And if that's true, they're going to go down to the interested in meeting step. Love it. All right. Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot for workflows. I know it definitely is. So let's actually talk about a few other examples because we have a little bit of time here. Let's talk about a few other examples of like what a workflow might look like. Catherine, how do you feel about the client review workflow?
The client review is extremely useful. Now, does it have to be verbatim for every office? No, but usually it's something we all have to do. Now, it might not necessarily be client review per se. It could be a different type of client meeting itself, but it's still something that's universal for every single one of us. We have to meet with our clients, or we have to call our clients. Whether we want to talk to them that much or not, that's not really up to us, but this is really something that'll help us guide it so that way we don't let things slip through the cracks, which is really the main purpose of workflows. Is it's that process to take us through it so that way the next time it comes about, we're not sitting there twiddling our thumbs going, I think we did it. We know for a fact if we complete it. So let's go through this one.
Yeah, so with this is 3 steps. We have, in this case, we're going to prepare for the review meeting. We're going to then do review day items, and then we're going to do review follow-up. So it's just 3 steps. But the whole point of this is anytime I schedule a client review, I'm going to prep, execute, and follow up on that meeting the exact same way every single time. Now with this, the tasks, they're still assigned to different people. It's going to tell me I need to run certain reports. I got to confirm the meeting. And then also we have the outcomes that are set up. So what this is based off of if the workflow is confirmed, rescheduled, or canceled. So if the meeting is confirmed, we go to step number 2. If the meeting is rescheduled, we actually repeat step 1. Okay, so hey, they reschedule for 2 weeks later. I need to redo all of the reports and everything later on. So I'm going to restart this step. Or if the meeting was canceled, we can actually just complete the workflow, or even we put in 2 options here. The process ends, and then we can actually give the reason why it ended and complete the workflow. I love that of actually having an outcome to complete the workflow on every step, because you don't know if it can possibly just end for some reason. You need to build that into your system. Now, when you actually do the prep, then it goes down to the execute. What I love here, especially with the last year, is we added in this fifth task in the prepare for review meeting to send the Zoom link. Hey, it's a new thing we're doing. We're doing Zoom meetings all the time. We got to make sure and send them the Zoom link 5 days before the actual meeting itself, so they have that there. If you've made changes to your processes internally during the pandemic or any adjustments like that, your workflow should also adjust any of those adjustments. Just so you know, we're not going to miss this. It's important that we send it out. We need to make sure and send it. Now, below that itself, we have the client review day items. Again, the day of the meeting, what we have to do, and also what we have to do for follow-up. Now, Catherine, I'm not going to really dive into this, but we have a lot of examples of workflows, don't we? Of like even whiteboarded out workflows.
We do actually. Let's go actually show them where that's at. So if we come on up to the question mark right next to your name in the top right corner, click on that, and then we're going to go to the other question mark, our red tail help desk. So we'll let that load for a second here. But at the top, there's that search. I always almost call it like a Google search. And you're actually going to type in workflow templates, or alternatively, I type in sample templates because I don't want to limit myself. Either way, it'll get you to the very first one there, sample workflow templates. So in here, this actually does have that prospecting one we went through. It also has the client review one, more of in that kind of rough draft phase, but it also has a secondary prospecting workflow. We'll have things on here that has to deal with more sensitive topics like client death that we normally don't like to think about, but it happens. Money withdrawal request. It could deal with just contact update information. So there's quite a few in here. So if you're ever sitting there going, yes, I want workflows, but I don't know where to begin, I'm feeling overwhelmed, hop into this first, because this will really get those kind of juices flowing and really spark those ideas. And you can even just practice by literally having this open and copying and basically putting it in.
Now, again, these aren't templates that we would copy over to your database. Like these are just PDFs. So again, if you're saying, okay, I need to build these out, most of the time, like when I talk to people, they either tell me, oh, hey, I would do the workflow exactly this way, and then half the time they're like, I would never do it that way. That's okay, because everybody who does their process is different. The point of these workflows that are all built out in these processes are to get you thinking about what you may or may not want to build. One suggestion I can give is, hey, like if you're building, like any kind of workflow and you're not sure what you should be setting up as outcomes, go in and take a look at how the outcomes are set up. Hey, in this client death workflow, the outcome depends on whether or not they have a surviving spouse. If they have a surviving spouse, we're going to do extra work. If they don't, we're going to actually just end the process. It's definitely fine, but there's all these different possibilities to really come in here and say, okay, well, what can be different? What needs to change? What do I need to update? Or whatever it is. But come here, take a look at these templates, just for anything, just to get an idea of like what you might want to build out. There's a lot of options here.
Now, one other thing too, and this is really just a reminder for ourselves, it's actually literal for us in a second here. Come on back to that prospecting workflow we had, Curtis. So the one that's actually, oops, sorry, back in the CRM. My bad. My bad.
There we go.
So we'll go back to workflow templates. So our name, manager account, and then workflow templates at the bottom here. And then scroll down to that prospecting number one that's actually all built out. Now, if we look at column 3 there, we have it marked as inactive. So same with if we actually come to the name of this itself, if you have it as inactive or under construction, it's actually not going to work for you. You want to make sure it's active. So that's just that one extra reminder. You don't want to go through all that work and then sit there and go, where is it? Why isn't it working? They lied to me all afternoon. What are they talking about? Have it active so that way you can actually use it.
Yes.
That's the last thing I wanted to stress.
The under construction is awesome to have, so you can build it out and know, hey, I started this client review workflow. And this has happened, I think, even for training, where Catherine is in the middle of a training and she's built out a client review workflow. I then start a training as well with a different user. We use the same database for training, and I see a client review workflow, and I start it and I show, hey, look at this client review work, and it's skeleton. There's nothing in it. I'm like, what is going on here? This isn't the right thing. It's because, oh, hey, I used one that was currently being worked on. It wasn't actually fully built out. So keeping it as under construction until it's actually ready to use makes it so no one else in your database will start to use it just yet.
Exactly.
Now, another last bit of advice I have when also building out, I see so many people trying to add so much information to the task name. Very similar, Catherine, how you said a task should be a verb. Everything should start with a verb. If it doesn't start with a verb, it's not telling you to do anything. But sometimes I need a lot more instructions than just the verb and then what it's telling you to do. The description is where you want to go. It's where you want to add that information. The description, add as much information as you want, but this is about how I can actually accomplish this. And whether it's explaining what that is. Oh, I need to make phone call number 1. It's an introduction phone call. That's all it is. Hey, like, we're just introducing ourselves. We'll reach out later. If they do, we go to interaction number 2, or if they're ready right there to set a meeting, it's going to take us. So we have all that extra information about what it actually means to do that task, so similar, like on my slides for the grocery items, I need a can of tomatoes. Well, I don't need any can of tomatoes. I need to make sure that it's specifically a can of San Marzano tomatoes that are peeled. If it's not from San Marzano, I am not putting it in my spaghetti sauce. End of story. But I can put those details. All the extra little details go in the description. I need to get tomatoes, but this is what it means to get a tomato. That was a kind of a crazy, intense statement. What does it actually mean to get a tomato, Catherine?
It's a whole philosophical event, apparently. But actually, one thing here too, actually, since we're talking about that description, go ahead and edit that task really quick. For me, just pick on any of them. You can also add in hyperlinks. So I know every now and then we'll have something where it's like, hey, make sure we update this on this other website. Put the website link right into it. So that way you can actually just click from that task. And then that way it just redirects you immediately to it. So you're not, of course, just limited to just this text itself. Put in hyperlinks, put in bullets, put in those tables. So that way it helps, again, keep our thoughts all nice and organized. So Chris is just putting that in for us, and you'll see there's that hyperlink. So have at it with that description. So that way it's as easy as possible.
Yeah, I love using these little where you highlight it, then I hit the link symbol to put in where it's actually going to take me. Then I can even change like the display text, like, where it say, hey, I don't want to say an actual link. I can just say, I can just type in Redtail and hit OK. So now when I click on Redtail, it'll actually take me to redtailtechnology.com. You have the ability to embed links into the description. And once it's there and the workflow is there, you can actually click on it. When I click on it, it's going to take me to redtailtechnology.com. Love it. That was cool. I love that.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.